many of you may know. And so the BRRRR strategy is when you buy a piece of real estate, you renovate that piece of real estate, you then rent it, you refinance your money out, and then you repeat that process. Okay. And so being able to do that, I guess so an example of that, my first ever property I bought was a single family house. I bought it for $100,000. I put $20,000 into it. And then it was appraised at 150. And so it was a perfect BRRRR. If you do the math on that, the bank gave me 80% of 150, which was 120,000. So I got all of my money back. And fun fact, I just rented that house today. My debt was it was below 1,000, and I rented that house at 1,200. So I had a little bit of rent. Well, because my debt has stayed the same, I just rented that house 3 years later at 1,850, and rents have gone up so much. So that's another awesome example of just having fixed debt with increasing rental rates that we're experiencing in the real estate game right now, which is awesome. But anyway, so that was my first experience with BRRRRs. And then from there, I was like, let's do a lot more of this, right? So I started doing more and more single families, and it was not easy. So my third ever house, it took me 11 months to do. It took me 9 months more than I thought it was going to be. It took me $60,000 more in rehab. I was green. I was new. I made a lot of mistakes. But thankfully I bought it right, and I was still able to take all my money out again. And then I was able to continue the snowball from there. And I'll back up on that front. So I was fortunate. I was able to find private funding for a $200K line of credit, so I could use that to then invest. However, you could do that with hard money if you know your numbers and you know what you're doing. Or you could just put it into multifamily and have somebody do it for you, which is where we've kind of moved into, but I'll get more into that in a second here. So that was my first example with the house. From there, kept doing it. Eventually I got tired of buying from wholesalers. So then I started a direct to seller system with a partner. We bought almost 50 houses in the last 2 years, direct to seller, where we kept recycling that money and just continued to put it in, pull it out, put it in, pull it out, pick up free rentals, right? And then I got started in multifamily early last year. And I'll give you an example of one deal that I did last year. I bought a 9-unit property for $450,000. 15 months later, it appraised at $642,000. We put about $20,000 into it. We didn't really do much besides raise the rents and do an operational value add. And then we were able to pull out $125,000, and we only put in $100,000 originally. So we were able to cash out more than what we actually put in, and we hold that asset. So now we have it cash flowing asset, and we get the depreciation that comes with it as well. I know a lot of people invest in real estate purely for tax depreciation and bonuses that come with it too. So just a lot of benefits when it comes to multifamily. And that was kind of the light bulb moment. When that happened, I was like, why am I doing 50 single families when I could be doing, 3 multifamilies a year? So that was when we really started to pivot. And then I guess a recent win that just happened was my first ever purchase was a 23 unit last year. I just refinanced that one this year, and I'll just let you know we purchased it for 900, and it just refied out at 1.35. I'll let you guys do the math, but it was a good day. So now I guess if I had to wrap everything up in a late morning summary, so I would say buy value add real estate, because you can use your capital to speed up your returns. And so it all comes down to the velocity of capital if you're wanting to ramp up your wealth really quickly, right? And so I guess the one thing that I want to say right now is it's a little bit more difficult to do that right now. So instead of actually refinancing with where people are at, I'm going to I'm going to give this nugget out. So what we are doing is, instead of refining at interest rates, what we're doing is we are locking in our debt fixed right now. So when we buy a building, let's say I bought a 12 unit last month, and we locked in 5% interest for 5 years. The bank is also funding our rehab. And then when we improve that asset's value next year, we're not going to refinance. Instead, we are going to take a secondary loan out on the property and capture our equity that we have built, to then take it, put it back to our investors, and we're going to continue to roll with that equity and hold that cash flowing asset with our debt. And then we can refinance when rates drop back down at some point. And that is it, guys. So sorry about being late, but if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to talk through anything.
Is that secondary loan with the same bank, Wyatt?
Yeah, that is with the same bank. It's going to be difficult getting any bank to take a second out if they don't have the first position.
Okay.
So Wyatt, Mike asks, you're 27 now. When did you start with the first single family?
I started in 2018 when I was 22. Yeah. I bought a burr, and then I bought a duplex, and I lived in one side.
Very impressive.
Thank you. Again, I apologize, guys.
Hey, so I got a question. I'm sorry. Wyatt, how are you? Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Delve a little bit more into, you are taking that second loan out, right? Because typically seconds are a little bit higher on an interest rate. Is that like are they giving you IO? Is that a short term? Are you just doing like a short, like 3-year term, so that you can capture that equity in the hopes that rates will be coming down and stabilize, and then you can go into longer term? Like, yeah, what's the thought process behind that?
Truthfully, I have not taken a second out yet, but that is my strategy moving forward on the good debt we already have. Right. And from my talks with our relationships with our banks, and we have quite a bit, what they've said is there's not going to be IO, and they're going to take it out, and it's its own term. So it's all negotiable based off however we want to do it. And my thought was I would just add it to the original loans term, just because we're going to refi at some point or sell it, but mostly refi.
So they're going to let you tag it on to the original loan then at that rate, or is it the new rate?
Yeah, it's going to be at the rate at the time. But if we have 5%, from this year, and we refi next year, and it's at, or we don't refi, but we take that secondary loan, that's going to be at, call it 7%. But it's a lot better having a smaller loan at 7 than the whole thing. Right. And we still get to capture our equity.
Okay. So essentially it's a HELOC.
Yeah, it's a HELOC. Yep. And truthfully, this is coming straight from Jake Stanziano. So I really haven't done anything original. I've just copied my whole life.
Wyatt, tell everyone about how you came up and got the 2 recent deals, and what it appraised for when we found out the appraisal. Tell us a little bit more about that story, because it's something special. How you buy right is special as well.
Yeah, well, we try to be really plugged into this community. So I host a meetup in our community that I don't come late to. So that's always good. But through that meetup came a couple deals recently. Our last 2 deals that were the 12 unit that we closed 2 weeks ago with Alex and Helen and one other, and then our 36 unit syndication that we're closing on Tuesday also came through that meetup, and then through that deal that we're closing on next week, that Alex and I are closing on, I'm pumped about. But we are buying that at 2.78 million. We are going to be putting about $600,000 into it. And then it's going to be worth about 4.2 when we're done, around that number. And the appraisal just came back last week, and we just got through loan committee. And on that deal, it appraised at 3.4 as is, and it appraised at 4.2 with our as completed business plan. And so it's a good day.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So Wyatt, what are some of your buy right criteria? Like, do you focus on like year, unit size? Can you kind of discuss what your criteria is?
Yeah, that's a great question. It has gotten better. I will say when I was younger and even more hungry, I was buying everything and just making it work. And we had some really good wins in some not so good areas. But now my buy right criteria is it's got to be a good area. And it's got to be some kind of value add component so that I can achieve a 15% IRR for my investors. And with that, I'm usually looking for either A, I can increase rents a lot. I can add ancillary income such as rubs, pet fees, CAM charges, common area maintenance. We do move-in fees, at pet rent, or an operational value add where I can come in and I know the expenses are too high in that area because I'm a property manager as well. We're vertically integrated. And so we keep a pretty tight pulse on we just know what rents are and what units should be expensed at.
So Wyatt, I think you said your budget was $600K for this last deal. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So of that $600K, how much of that is going to actually physical updates or upgrades to the property?
The majority of it. Yeah, we're doing a little over 10,000 a unit on the inside, and then we're doing about 50,000 on the exterior, and then we budgeted for about half the ACs and half the furnaces to be done, since half of them are upgraded and half aren't. So we're ready for all of those to go at some point because it's going to be a 10-year hold with a refi between years 3 and 5, and it looks like it's going to be 100% refi. So I'm pretty stoked for our investors too.
Awesome. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'll share.
Wyatt, I had a question. Oh, I'm sorry. Wyatt, I had a quick question. Being for some of the newer investors, how long did it take you to build that initial credibility with your local banks for them to be able to loan you or basically, I don't know how you got the 200 line of credit, but what the process was, like how difficult was that?
Yeah. So truthfully, it was from a family member. My dad had his house paid off, and I asked him to get a home equity line of credit, and he said no. And then I asked him again, and he said no. And I kept bugging him for about 3 or 4 months, and finally he took a chance, and I did pay him 9% interest on that. Plus he got 50% equity of the first house we did without doing anything.
Nice.
But he took a chance, and I didn't let him down. So that was how, and then I took it to a bank. And I think the trick here is a bank isn't going to want to refinance their equity out, especially if you're not proven yet. And some banks are more conservative than others, but the best thing to do if you're going to do the single family route is to buy it with cash or a different bank, and then refi it with a different bank, because they'll get a new appraisal, they'll get their own value, and usually that goes better, is what we found.
Awesome. Thank you, Wyatt.
Yeah.
So Wyatt, this is more of like a situation that I'm currently in. We're in the process of so we did something similar with an 8-plex here in Albuquerque, and so we provided the appraiser with and I don't know what Jake and Gino calls it, but we essentially provided them with a project plan with everything that we did to the property to increase the NOI. And we provided this appraiser, and one of the things the appraiser is asking for is a P&L for the property. Have you come across that before?
Yeah. So basically they're just looking for, the running expenses and income of the property, right? Profit and loss.
Yeah, yeah.
So similar to a T12, right?
Right.
So yeah, we always provide. So we always got to get that from the seller, right? And then underwrite it, and then we can offer on it. It's rare we offer without a P&L. So we always have that. And then we also keep a P&L ourselves with our books. So we can provide it when it's time to refinance.
Okay, so you have seen that then, like during the refinance, just because this is our second one, and on the first one the appraiser did not ask for it, and it just so happened. I mean, it's not a problem. I'm just curious because this was a new question for us on the refi side.
Yeah. I mean, you should have a P&L.
Yeah.
So you can keep track of your own books. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then, yeah, most appraisers do ask for it. Yeah. I've never had an appraiser not ask for it, put it that way.
Cool.
On the multifamily.
Right, I have a question. Is it good to take a cash out refi or a HELOC? Which one is better?
Well, it depends on where rates are at the moment and what you're going to do with that money, right? If you know that you want to use all of that money and you have that opportunity ready to go, then a cash out refi is the better way, in my opinion, because the HELOC's at a floating rate usually. But if you don't have an opportunity for where to put that money, then it might be better to set up a HELOC at the moment so that you don't have to pay interest on it until that opportunity arises. But then you can take advantage of it like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Or you could work with the bank to get ready to do a refi, get everything set up, and then just say, hey, I'll let you know when the time comes, but here's all my documents. So you're ready to rock.
Okay. Which one is better in terms of tax implications? Or
in terms of tax implications?
Mm.
The only thing you're going to be saving taxes on is whatever you're paying interest on is going to be a tax write-off. So whichever one is worse interest rate and whichever one you're borrowing more at, I guess, would be the answer. But if you're looking at it that way, it's really the opportunity you're going into should be what you're looking at for the tax savings, because you can do a cost seg study on multifamily, or you can roll all that stuff into year one. Right?
Okay.
Wyatt, I'm fascinated. How do you manage interest rate risk in your model?
So I use Sharpline, Chris Jackson's synthesis model to underwrite everything that we do. Are you familiar with that, Doug?
Haven't heard of it, huh?
Okay, I'd recommend it. It's the most sophisticated underwriting tool that I've seen, and I've used quite a bit. So, anyways, through that, we are underwriting at a 6% refi is what I'm basically underwriting at right now. Where I think rates are going to go, which I can't predict the future, but what we're currently seeing and what I currently think the market's going to do is this year we're going to continue to increase. Next year we may continue to increase. We may see 7s, we may see 8s, but I think overwhelmingly within 2 or 3 years it will start to drop back down. So currently what we are doing is locking in a minimum of a 5-year term. So we can ride out a 5-year period, and if interest rates ever drop, we can refi. If they don't, we can just ride out a 5-year period and sell at that point.